losing it again. Faded again. The signal is all but gone now. Interference again. Who could be jamming Cavor's signals? Oh, well, maybe later tonight he'll send more. If only I could send back to him. Let the poor devil know that someone here on Earth hears him. A minute, please. Here, I'll adjust this astro scanner. Then if the messages start again, I'll hear him. Just a minute, please. You must be my anxiously awaited Mr. Bedford.
Yes. Professor Wendigee?
Yeah, please come in, Mr. Bedford. And thank goodness you're here. Please, your coat and hat, I'll hang them up.
Thank you, sir.
Now, over here, please. This chair, you will find it comfortable.
Oh, thank you, Professor.
Yeah. Oh, thank goodness you are here. His messages are coming in lately sounding, well, they sound anxious.
Sorry, Professor. Very bad storm in the Channel. It took 3 full days just from London here to Rotterdam.
3 days? Well, Mr. Bedford, men like yourself, a man has traveled to the moon and back at the speed of 12,000 feet per second. I should think that 3 days at sea merely from London to Rotterdam would be a bore. Is that the word? You must pardon my English. I only speak it 2 years.
You speak it well, Professor.
Well, Mr. Bedford, I must say that the messages from Dr. Cavor have been giving me more than a little practice in translating English.
It is Cavor. You're positive.
Mr. Bedford, my telegram did not state explicitly the fact that it is Cavor, simply because I did not want to spread the word. The newspapers have already given you too much silly publicity in this matter. And I assure you, there is no doubt. The messages I receive nightly from the moon have always been signed by Dr. Cavor. But I have never known how to find you. Not until your articles about your trip to the moon with Cavor began to appear in that English magazine.
And you, Professor, are one of the few people who believe those articles to be true. Most people have laughed at them as being fanciful fiction, highly imaginative. But
indeed, Mr. Bedford. In my case, the but is that I have already heard much of the story which you wrote, and heard it from Dr. Cavor himself in code messages from the moon. On this equipment over here. Yeah, I need your help. I have had many messages from Cavor and the moon in the last 2 years, but it took me a long time to break Cavor's code. He must not know the standard Morse code. He had to invent one of his own. It took me a while to get onto that fact, and even longer to find that the code translated into English. Even now, I do know this. There are still many poor stretches in my translations. But now I shall have your help. The help of a man who was actually with Dr. Cavor in the moon. A man who also saw many of the things he describes.
yes, thank God we did find each other, Professor. But now, how does this equipment work? It looks extraordinary.
Yeah, in some ways it is extraordinary by the standards of today. That steady repeated sound you hear is an electrical astro scanner. After all, the poor man doesn't know whether or not his messages are being picked up here on Earth at all. The scanner keeps changing direction constantly. If Cavor changes his wavelength, it tracks him.
Remarkable. So advanced.
Ah, Mr. Bedford, not quite as remarkable as you think. My equipment consists mainly of the standard devices for sending signals between continents. Added are certain of the new devices invented by Marconi, which make possible sending and reception without wires. A wireless sending and reception. But here, this is my special secret here. This electrical booster. It adds the extra energy capacity that makes it possible for my equipment to receive signals from as far away as the moon. Unfortunately, I have not yet been able to build a generator large enough to send messages that far. And that is the chief reason why the Dutch government has not yet recognized my work openly and officially.
But haven't you demonstrated with Cavor's messages?
Demonstrated? Yes, Mr. Bedford. There are some of the government ministers who do believe me. But there are many others who think these messages are an elaborate, hoax. That is why I've been requested to keep news of Cavor's messages a secret. A request with which I complied reluctantly. A small country like Holland does not like to run the risk of being embarrassed before the world by the possible tricks of... Well, the phrase has been used once or twice. Of a mad scientist.
Oh, you don't have to tell me about that, Professor. Small country or large, even in a large country like mine, the government is wary of releasing any sort of official word about a man who says that he has traveled to the moon and back. For over 3 years, I agreed to keep silent. At last, I couldn't take it any longer. I decided to publish my story in that magazine.
Well, you have someone in me who knows you are telling the truth. And unless you're an electrical wizard who also has picked up the messages...
Now, I assure you, Professor, I don't know the first thing about the principles of telegraphy, let alone wireless telegraphy. In fact, the only name in the field that I do know, other than yours, is that of Marconi.
Oh, you flatter me that you then know mine, my boy. I have not attracted as much attention as Marconi. I'm afraid that Marconi is a scientist quite rightly destined always to be more famous than I. He applies his great discoveries to the making of practical things. I use mine to dream. To delve into things that are more properly to be discovered and used in the far future. There are some people who say that I am 20, even 50 years ahead of others in my field of electrical research. Ah, yes, but so few of my most learned colleagues have believed that I could receive messages from the moon. However, I do, and that is a fact.
Professor, when will the next message come from Cavor?
With luck, in about an hour. He was on the beam to me just before you arrived. But then the jamming began again.
Jamming?
Yeah. Oh, interruptions. Strange interruptions. Not interruptions between the moon and the earth. They seem to happen there, on the moon. And lately, Cavor's messages have seemed so careless, so harried, and worried.
Worried?
Something there is trying to interrupt his transmissions. And he knows it. The fact he does is reflected in his manner of sending.
Do you think he's in danger?
Perhaps. I must confess that I think he is. But, Mr. Bedford, please, let us sit down over there once more where it is comfortable. Before the next message comes in, I'd like to hear an account of your trip to the moon from your own lips.
Well, by this time, I've told it so often, the story probably will be almost abbreviated in detail. But at least I'll be telling it this time to someone who believes me.
Oh, may I offer you a cigar? Brandy before you begin?
No, thank you. Just one of my cigarettes. Here we are. The story starts properly 4 years ago in the summer of 1899.
Yeah?
I had taken a house in the country so that I could work in peace on my third novel. My next-door neighbor, I was told, was a scientist named Cavour. We were both busy men. Our paths never crossed. Months went by without my meeting him. Then one night, a fine fall evening, October 14th, 1899, I was walking in my garden. Suddenly the air was torn by a great explosion. It was Cavour's house. The chimneys jerked toward the sky. The shingles of the roof followed, sailing up and up. And then the roof was torn away. And then the furniture, everything in the house was blown into the sky. The trees crashed around wildly, dashing to pieces with the force of the explosive impact. Then there was a roar like a clap of thunder, and the windows of my house were shattered by the force. And then, Professor Wendigee, all was deathly stillness. I had been knocked to the ground and pelted by the debris from the explosion. I picked myself up. My first thought was that man, Cavour? Had he been killed? I raced toward the spot where his house had been. For several minutes, I beat the bushes and picked in the wreckage. And then I heard his groaning.
Here, whoever you are.
Are you hurt badly?
Cut up some, but I'm not bleeding badly. I must have been knocked out by the force. Oh, not bad. Fine. In fact, young man, you can congratulate me.
Congratulate you? In heaven's name, what for?
I've done it.
You... But what on earth caused that explosion?
That was not an explosion at all.
Really? Well, what would you call it? Your house is gone. Mine over there is badly battered. And I'll bet there isn't a window in the neighborhood which hasn't been shattered.
Well, call it an explosion if you like. You see, it was from a gas which I have discovered and with which I'm experimenting. The explosion resulted from a slight miscalculation of mine, but that was no explosion as such. No, Mr.
Bedford. I'm your neighbor over there.
Yes, thank you, Bedford. May we stroll that way? I'm afraid with my house gone, I might have to depend on your hospitality tonight.
Certainly, Dr. Cavour, is it?
Right, my friend.
Well, come along. We'll have to clean ourselves up. There's a path here. Follow me, Doctor, and watch those fallen branches. I still don't understand what you mean about that explosion.
My house did not explode. It just degravitated.
Degravitated?
Yes, some of my new gas, I call it Cavourite, escaped unnoticed in my laboratory. Cavourite renders objects weightless. It negates the normal pulling force of the Earth's gravity. Any object exposed to it, except the body of a human being or animal, will just rise into the air. Rise, that is, when the object becomes coated with the gas. Unless the object is held back by restraint, it will sail right off into space. My house, you see, filled up with the gas, filled up with it until the house just burst and sailed off.
Well, you're lucky that you weren't killed, or that you didn't sail off into space yourself.
But I remind you, Cavourite has no effect on human beings as such.
Well, here we are at my house, Dr. Cavour.
It is a pretty messed up affair, isn't it? Those windows. My Cavourite can be powerful, can't it? Sorry, Bedford.
Nothing to be done about it now. Come on in.
Thank you, Mr. Bedford. I'll explain more as we clean up.
And that, Professor Wendigee, was how we met, Cavour and I.
A strange meeting, to be sure. But when did you begin to help Cavor build your space sphere? The sphere you used to travel to the moon.
Almost at once. I was so fascinated with the whole idea. It was the next morning that he told me of his plan to fly into outer space, to fly to the moon itself.
Think, Bedford, of a hollow sphere made of a crystal pure, heavy, unbreakable glass. Here, I'll make you a diagram. Now, inside of the sphere, living quarters. A space for the storage of supplies, and plenty of room for 2 men. The sphere is coated with my gas, the Cavorite, but we are inside the sphere when the gas coats it. Yes, we treat the sphere with the gas from inside it. And then our sphere soars off into space.
Into space? Space? But where?
The moon, Bedford. Our nearest heavenly neighbor of any real size.
The moon?
It could be any object there in space with gravitational pull, a planet, an asteroid, but let's start with the moon. Now, this is how it would work. We must have a way of controlling the force of the Cavorite. Thus, our glass sphere will be completely covered by heavy metal plates. Between those plates and our glass hull will be a thin, hollow space. The Cavorite will be released into this space, this hollow. The metal plates will operate on a shutter principle, a little like the shades that we can open and shut as we choose. Anytime we open one of our metal shutters, slide it back, we release the power of the Cavorite, which coats the glass beneath the metal, and the Cavorite will carry our sphere off from the Earth. We shall be pulled, attracted toward any object in space toward which we aim, attracted by its gravity, since we have canceled out the gravity of the Earth with the Cavorite.
But wouldn't we crash into that object?
No. We shall also operate our metal shutters at will from inside our space sphere. Any time we open one of them or close one of them, we will change course. Open this one, we pull right. Close it and open that one, we move left. The object in space will pull at that portion of the glass of the sphere which we have exposed to its gravitational pull. And by working the shutters subtly, we can not only navigate, but also slow the sphere as needed. We can maneuver it, stop it, slow it, and land safely on any object in space that we choose.
Amazing. But Dr. Cavor, you speak of we.
Bedford, I have watched your expression. Your eyes follow my every word. You're excited by the power and possibilities of my Cavorite. You've seen what happened to my house. You are excited by my vision. Vision? No, you are excited by my plan to fly to the moon.
I must admit, no idea has ever excited me more.
Bedford, will you join me as my assistant? I have kept all of this secret until now, but I have long needed the help of another.
But Dr. Cavor, say we do reach the moon. Can we return to the Earth? And the danger.
Danger? Well, there will be danger, make no mistake about that. But that danger will probably be encountered there on the moon itself. To return, we merely expose our gas-coated panels and negate the gravity of the moon. Then we aim and navigate toward the Earth. Now, again I ask you, will you join me in this great exploit?
But I'm not a scientist, not even a workman.
Workmen? Why, we'll hire workers to construct our sphere, according to my plans. They'll never know what it's for. No, you and I are needed only to mix a new and better supply of Cavorite. Under my direction, you'll work out. Agreed, then?
Oh, I must be mad, but... Cavor, I'll join you.
Wonderful. Let's get to work at once, then, my boy. Not waste an hour.
I tell you, Professor Wendigee, Cavor and I worked like fiends.
How long did the construction take in all?
Almost exactly a year. We had a large crew of workmen, of course. And as Cavour had predicted, they merely thought us a pair of eccentric gentlemen building a strange, ugly house of glass and metal. They especially thought the powerful motors needed to work the shutters an odd assignment. Needless to say, other people thought it a little too modern for a house design, even if the year was 1900, and the brave new 20th century had just dawned. And then there came that night, October 1st, 1900. We were ready. The sphere had been filled with supplies and food. A full moon was sailing high in the heavens. Cavour and I climbed into our ship, our space sphere, and we were ready.
Ready, Bedford? The great exploit begins.
Yes, Cavour, ready, I suppose.
Nervous? Calm yourself, Bedford. I've figured to the last detail. The only danger is not in acceleration, but there after we've landed on the moon.
Our speed. Do you still think it will be that our sphere will hit a speed of somewhere between 11,000 and 13,000 feet per second?
Yes, or to put it more accurately, about 135 miles per minute, 8,100 miles per hour. The moon is exactly 238,900 miles away from us, from Earth, tonight. If we could travel at full speed directly to the moon, I estimate the journey would take 29 hours or so, give or take a bit.
But of course we'll lose time navigating, braking for landing.
Right, but possibly not as much as you think. We'll have to get onto the trick of working the shutters properly, but with luck, Bedford, we'll probably be on the moon within 48 hours. Ready then? Remember, we shall probably experience a period in space out there where everything in the sphere is weightless, ourselves included.
Yes, the supplies are all lashed down securely.
Good. Now remember, if, once we have left the Earth behind, we begin floating around in this cabin, it's perfectly natural. We will be weightless. We shall get to our shutter control by paddling through the degravitated air. A little like we were swimming. When we wish to rest, we shall strap ourselves onto our couches.
Right.
We're ready, Bedford. I'll handle these dials which control the shutters. You take that panel controlling the release of the Cavorite. Now, release the first tube of gas. Switch on. Now, 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Open the shutter. We're off. We're aimed for the moon.
Cavour, it's not too late. Let's call it off. Let's...
Bedford, you idiot. Call it off. Nearly a minute has gone by. Look, there. That meter which records our mileage. We're already 150 miles from the Earth. We're in space.
But I didn't feel a thing in the liftoff.
No, Bedford. The Cavorite lifted us swiftly and smoothly into the empty gulf of space. Our journey begins.
Yes, Cavour. But this doesn't seem the beginning of a journey. It seems more the beginning of a dream.